Cedric Maxwell Podcast
is brought to you by PrizePicks.
Welcome in to the Cedric Maxwell Podcast. You guys thought we were gone? No. Just a little hiatus here, and we're back talking basketball with Cedric Maxwell. We're now 14 games in to the Celtics season, certainly a large enough sample size, Max, to start formulating some opinions, maybe even drawing a few conclusions. We'll see how that goes. We're going to talk about a bunch of things going on around the Celtics right now and around the league as well. First off, we want to tell you that this show is brought to you, as always, by our pals over at PrizePicks. You know the deal. Number one daily fantasy sports app in all of North America. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Download the app. Code CLNS, get 50 in your lineups when you play your first $5. Once again, download the app. Code CLNS, 50 in your lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Max, let's get right into it. And again, haven't had a chance to talk to you about a bunch of stuff, so I'm going to kind of just lay it all on the table here. Through 14 games, the Celtics are 7-7. We saw them fall, 3 games below 500. They had that rough start to the season. Things appear to have leveled off. Your thoughts just broadly right now on how you think that the team is playing, responding to the adversity of being without so many of their better players, whether it be trade or injury, and just how they've responded so far this year.
Well, I think if you look at the schedule the way it is right now, it was a tough schedule. Celtics had played more games than anybody else. And I think that was one of the problems that they had. And then it was continuity, getting all these guys on the same page. Jaylen Brown seems to be playing really well right now. Peyton Pritchard and Derek White, for a while, couldn't knock down three. Sam Hauser is shooting about 13% from the three-point line. So Joe Mazzulla has had to change his stance with his team. Everybody says, well, the threes, they're shooting threes, but they're also defending. And I think that if you look at some of the ways he's gone, Minot started for a while, was playing well, but, he's moved away from Minot. And Jordan has been the guy who stepped up and played a lot more on the offensive and defensive end. So I think it's just going to be a combination of things over and over again. The one thing you and I talked about, and I think this is the problem for Celtic fans who want to, can we use that word tank? Like you like to use that word tank? It's almost, I'm just saying it's almost impossible. And the reason why, because you have Brown, because you have Derek White. And here's the biggest thing. Joe Mazzulla is going to have these guys playing hard all the time. In the beginning of the season, I remember my friend that I'm looking at now, and the first thing you start talking about, look at yourself, right in the mirror. The first thing he started talking about was Queta. Oh my God, they have no center. Queta has handled himself extremely well. Rebounding the basketball, blocking shots. They've been better with Queta on the floor than without him defensively. So it's just a lot of combinations they have. And for them to be 7-7 right now, here's the best scenario. Sean Grandy just talked about it. Is that the playoffs begin today. The Boston Celtics would be in the playoffs or the play-in. But they'd be getting a good pick. And the fact that Tatum is going to be back. And I talked to him about it for a while about, and the thing he keeps mentioning, like, look, I have not practiced 6 out of 7 days a week. I have not done rehab. And for me to sit out for the entire year.
Yeah. Look, as far as a couple of those things go, the Queta stuff, I'm a documented Queta fan. I just don't know that he was going to leap from fourth center to first center on your depth chart and be able to handle that. That being said, definitely my most pleasant surprise of the season, how he looks fine. Like you're not worried. You could do a lot worse there. And that's a big leap for him to make. Back in the day, I was advocating for Queta over Cornet minutes, but Luke was playing so well, I had to concede, you got to keep Queta on the bench. I did not know how he would respond to starters' minutes and a starter's workload. I still think he's getting his conditioning up, but they're so clearly better when he's on the floor than off. And the value over replacement, the drop from Queta to whoever comes behind him, is so big that they really, really, really miss him. So I do think some of the disparity in the numbers has to do with how little they have behind them. And again, the big man snapshot was really big man depth. You see what they brought in. You've got Garza. You've got, I guess you would call Tillman like a small ball 5, and then Boucher as well. Boucher and Tillman are in witness protection program right now. Those guys might never be seen from again. But, everything else, that we've seen out of Queta, and even Garza's minutes have been outstanding. No problem there. As far as the schedule, I do think that it is tough in the sense that they've played 3 out of 4, nights a couple of times. They've played more games than anyone else. And so it's been demanding, but I do think they've gotten a fair amount of good fortune, which is you've played 3 dog teams, 4, let's say, 3 Western Conference teams that are struggling anyway without their best player. The Clippers last night without Kawhi. You have the Grizzlies without Ja Morant, and you had the Pelicans without Zion. Those teams are not good enough to be missing their only good player. And so, again, and you played the Wizards, who are the Wizards. And so the Celtics have really beat up on these teams, which is what you're supposed to do, beat up on bad teams.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's a great sign. If they studied, if they struggled, rather than not studying, if they struggled with those guys, then you'd be worried. So they did what they have to do. No problem there. Even Cleveland, which is their best win against a strong opponent, is playing without Garland and without Strus. And, you catch them at a bad time. Donovan Mitchell was banged up in that game, and he didn't play very well either. So you get that win too, and that's pretty good. Everything else is about what you would think. I think they are competitive with the middle of the pack teams. They're going to struggle against the top teams, but they're beating the bad teams. That's going to keep you alive in the East, right? I don't think there's a big drop there might not be a big drop between 4 and 10 in the East this year, which is why they could have such a wild swing where they finish. And they've also had tremendous injury luck. And it's not just injury luck. Joe Mazzulla has coached like a madman, trying to win every game. There's not a single load managed game so far this season. And that includes Jaylen Brown, who came off he's battling a hamstring and had off-season surgery. Most teams would have rested a guy like Brown by now. And if they did 1 or 2 games out of the first 14, they might be 4 games out of 500 instead of 500. So to their credit, they're playing really hard, Max, and Joe's got them trying really hard to win. So they deserve where they're at. Their numbers would say they should be even better. I still want to see where we're at after 30 or 40 games before I determine it. But I guess I'll ask you outright. Are they better through this point in the season than you thought they would be, or about what you thought?
I think they're better, actually, because I was like you. I had a big question mark with Queta. What can Queta do? You lose Porzingis, you lose Holiday, you lose Luke, you lose Al Horford. That's a serious nucleus of people that you just lost for salary cap reasons. And to come in and try to replace those guys, from Pritchard being the 6th man to all of a sudden being the starter, it was tough for a while with him. But now he seems to have turned the corner. Scoring the basketball, defending the basketball. For a while, Derek White looked a little uneasy. He was unsteady about what he was doing. The most consistent guy has been Jaylen Brown, scoring the basketball. But they have to rebound, gain rebound. Jordan Walsh was really, like I said, he's been a revelation this year. I had a chance to talk to him, and I told him before the game, I said, you know what, let me explain something to you. Normally I don't touch players, but I do like him. And I said, I'm going to say this and say this with all the love I can give you. I said, you know what, I don't give a fuck if you make a mistake. What I want you to do is just play hard and play up to your ability. Don't play like you're damn it scared. You've been playing basketball all your life. You play behind these guys, and the only way you're going to get minutes is Joe Mazzulla. He's going to have to play. And this was Joe's big word. He said, you're going to have to play with a sense of urgency. And that's what he believes. And I not for a while was playing with a sense of urgency. Seemed like that's petered off a little bit, so Joe isn't playing him as much. But now he seemed to be going to Jordan Walsh. And Jordan Walsh in the last 4 games, has really kind of picked the pace up and started really playing well. He did a great job on Harden the other day. Although Harden had 40-plus points, that's kind of crazy to say. He made him work for each one of them. And on top of that, Harden got some questionable calls. I don't know whether he just bumping into people, but I thought he did a great job of defending the basketball. You talk about load management. Maybe get more nice load management perspective. I'm not saying that, Jaylen Brown's not going to play, but if there was a game that you weren't going to play him, that you were going to rest him, that could be the one tomorrow night against Brooklyn because there's a poor game.
They are. And they have a nice gap, too. So, again, I don't think they need to. They've reached a little comfortable part of their schedule where they've got a little bit more breathing room. It was really, really tough for a little bit there. I'll ask you, Max, and you mentioned a few of these guys, but if you had to hone into your top one or two or three things that you're most pleasantly surprised by, what would those be?
I think it would be probably Queta. Queta would be at the top of the list. The thing I'm not surprised about is the fact that Joe Mazzulla said, what I'm going to have is chaos this year. I'm going to play hard, and these guys, I'm going to demand that they play hard. You could almost tell that the way, Joe is vindictive. You think about what he did to the media guys when they had the media game. He had all the coaches playing against all our guys from CLNS and, Bobby Manning and people like that. And they were fouling and kicking her. I mean, I'm not sure. I think the media guy scored maybe 6 points and the other team had 60 or whatever it was.
Or 57-4.
Okay, 57-4. That was vindictive. And I told Joe about it on the plane. I said, and Joe just busted out laughing. He was like, yeah, that was, I said. And he laughed about it because that in his mind, it is them against the world sometimes. And he still looks at the media as, a pain in the ass. Like he has to deal with them, but they're going to be a pain in the ass.
So wait a second, because I've spent a lot of time on this, and I made a bunch of enemies for saying that Joe did the media guys dirty. You're telling me you talked to him and he kind of wink, was like, yeah, the message.
No. Then week, he just busted out laughing. So he knew what he had. He knew what he had done. I'm just sad I wasn't there to see my man Bobby Manning. And said Bobby Manning actually scored a basket. I said, oh,
not in the coach's game.
Okay, not the coach's game. Well, I'm sorry, I'm giving credit, but yeah, that was just that's Joe, and that's who Joe is, and that's why they're going to play the way they're playing because he's not going to take any prisoners. Joe Mazzulla said to me one time, and he and I were, it's a private moment. We're actually at I do a play on the parquet where I'm there with a bunch of the fans before a game about 2:00 in the afternoon. And Joe has a thing that he walks around, a traditional walk that he walks around. And he stopped and talked to me. And he said something to me that was really kind of crazy. He said, you know what? I don't think I'm a good coach. And I said, Joe, I don't think you're a good coach either. I think you're a great coach. And he was like, why would you say that, Max? I said, because you had to deal with so many personalities over the last couple of years. And now I think this year he will be able to put more of his fingerprint on this team because when you remember Joe Mazzulla as a player, he was undersized. He worked his ass off. He gave nothing. And that's what he feels this team is going to have to do to win. They're going to have to play balls to the wall each and every moment for them to win games. Even look at last night's game against Clippers. They build a big lead, and then they start petering it away by not playing smart. And I think, if anything, that probably pissed Joe off more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings me to my next point. This is a little bit of a crusade of mine, and I'm curious your opinion, because my opinion on Joe Mazzulla, I actually think he's teetering right on the line between genius and madman, and oftentimes those two things intersect. So I think a lot of fans, when things go badly, they are quick to point out Joe this, Joe that. And I think, from a basketball perspective, he's a genius. And I think in terms of motivating people and getting the most out of his guys or getting people to buy into what he's doing, he's also unbelievably effective. To be able to do that with a group of veterans like he did the last couple of years, given the circumstances, with which he took the job, I don't think most people could do that. So I give Joe a ton of credit. But I also question sometimes how he goes about his business. And again, he may prove all of us right, much in the way that I liken him to Bill Belichick a lot, because a lot of people were like, what is this guy doing? He's going to kill this team, this guy, this situation. Like, he's nuts. What a bad. And no, I guess he was right. So check out the rings, Super Bowl. And so Mazzulla right now, you have a couple of situations here. You mentioned Minot was playing well, and now he's kind of back in his own head a little bit. I'm going to bring up Anfernee Simons, who to me is the most puzzling member of this team right now. He's a guy with a scorer's pedigree who has some issues on the defensive end, and he's never really played in a structure like the Celtics before. Mm-hmm. And right now he's getting yanked around a little bit. The other night he sat the entire third quarter. He's had one game where he played 2 minutes and a half because Joe didn't like what he saw. Joe's treating him kind of like one of the stay readies, as opposed to a fixture on this team and a 20-point per game scorer and a guy who I'm going to play you no matter what and try to get the most out of you. I'm going to ask you, do you believe the approach that he's taken with Simons right now is the right one? Or are there some people that need kid gloves, so to speak, because you're afraid of breaking them? Because Simons looks a little lost to me right now. Like, he doesn't know what he's supposed to do and he's not playing with instincts. And I'm not sure he has terrific basketball instincts. I think he's got terrific basketball scoring ability, but I think he's thinking a lot and it's slowing him down and it's making him look lazy or disengaged. And I don't know if he's lazy or disengaged. I just think he's lost right now. So whatever Joe's doing, I think he's in his head right now.
Well, I believe it is too. He's saying it, but what Joe is saying is that everybody has to play defense and you have to defend the basketball. And Simons has to defend his position. He spoke of himself. He said, I was in Portland's defense. But Joe Mazzulla insists on that. Joe Mazzulla is going to use Simons. If he's hot, he's going to play. If he's not, then he is looking at him today, right now, as a liability on the defensive end. So he's pressing the buttons that he wants to press, and that's who Joe Mazzulla is. I think Simons, why would you have to use kid gloves if you're your third, fourth year in the league? You put them around. Yeah, okay, eighth year in the league. So you understand the game, how the game is played. Not your first rodeo. And if it's not your first rodeo, and he played in Portland where essentially he could do what he wanted to do and didn't have to play defense, Joe Mazzulla is going to hold him accountable. And at the end of the day, I think he's going to be better off for it, because as a player, all you want is consistency. And if I'm not playing well, okay, I'm not playing. But if I'm playing well, Joe Mazzulla has ridden him and let him get out. Look at the Philly game where he knocked down 4 or 5 in a row. Look at the Orlando game where he shot well. So I think he's using him. And it depends on how effective he is, especially coming into a game. In these last couple of games, he's turned the ball over. And so Joe went with the other guys who are Peyton Pritchard and Derek White.
Yeah. And he is. The question is does Simons deserve that treat? I understand that with like Walsh, Ugo, Minot, younger guys who haven't shown anything in the league yet. But you did bring in a guy who's played 30-something minutes a game for all, bad to mediocre teams. Now, they haven't all been bottom feeders. He's contributed on, like a mediocre Portland team, which turned into a bad Portland team by the time he left. He's a guy who shoots 40% from three, and Joe loves his shooting, and he's an 8-year veteran. Does he deserve that yo-yo treatment the same way those other guys do? Or sometimes you just have to live with the good and the bad. My question is Joe trying to make him into something he's not, and therefore not getting out of him what the good that he brings?
Well, the thing that I believe Joe is doing, and as a player, you know if you play well or not. And Joe,
and I don't think he's played well at all, Simon. So I'm not saying he deserves the minutes. I think he's messed up in his head.
Yeah, Joe Mazzulla is looking at it in this way. If you want quality minutes, then you'll have quality outlets playing on both ends of the floor. And when Simons has had those outings, he's played well. But right now, he said when he's not shooting the ball, I thought it was a better ball handler than that. If they put pressure in the backcourt, he has turned the ball over more than my share when you have a point guard. So I think there are a lot of things he has to learn. And then we're talking differences of playing in the West and versus playing in the East. Believe it or not, people, playing in the East is a lot more physical. It is New York street basketball, North Carolina, Atlanta, Baltimore. That's that kind of basketball. Sometimes when you play that West Coast, it's like, okay, then you scored, I'll score. And we're not contending, and, we're cool here. And so I just believe he has to take another stance.
All right, I want to continue this conversation because I do have another question about this. I do think it's an interesting topic just in terms of what is playable versus not playable and what coaches trust and don't trust. But first, we do want to tell you guys at home about our sponsor here over at CLNS Media and the Cedric Maxwell Podcast, and that, of course, is PrizePicks. PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in all of North America. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Went up to 2,000 times your cash. Get in on the action this season, any season. Doesn't matter what sport you follow, basketball, hockey, football. Get in on it right now. Easy to play. Pick 2 to 6 players, stat projections. You can cross sports. I don't like to do that. I like to focus in on one game, or if it's football, on one block at a time, so I can kind of really, lock in on those games. But you can play it however you want. Check it out. There's free squares going all the time that you can insert into your lineups. Makes it that much easier to cash out. Flex play, you can cash out early even if you don't have a perfect lineup. Injury reboot, someone gets hurt, you're covered. Don't worry about that. So again, check it out right now. Download that app. Code CLNS. Get 50 in your lineups when you play your first 5. Download the app. Code CLNS. Get 50 in your lineups when you play your first 5. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Now, Max, I do want to ask you, continuing the conversation we were having earlier about Simons, and I'm seeing it now with Hauser. He only played 6 minutes the other day. And these are guys, if you were to say, well, what do they bring to the table? Scoring. That's it. Shooting, scoring, right? And that's why they're in this league to begin with. There are plenty of starting caliber players who are mainly offensive-minded players that coaches try to hide in lineups. I mean, you look at Jalen Brunson's a top 5 MVP guy, and he's a guy who's playing. I mean, again, he's elite. Steph Curry, Trae Young, there's plenty of guys, James Harden. And again, I'm not comparing Anfernee Simons' offensive game to those guys, but it's not bizarre to have a guy whose bread and butter and his calling card is offense, who doesn't play a lick of defense. They're everywhere. But here, I don't know what it is. Maybe we're spoiled because for the last few years, everybody has been able to do both things at a really high level. Very, very good offensive, defensive players, switchable, physical, smart, good team defenders. Everyone could shoot the basketball. But here on this team, you have guys who kind of do either or. And in the either or categories, you have Minot, Walsh, Ugo Gonzalez, scrappy, defensive-minded, hustle guys. And then you have your Hauser and your Simons. It is interesting to me. Why is it that a coach, or why specifically Joe Mazzulla, would be okay with a guy who can really only play defense and doesn't have a lick of offensive ability versus a guy who is really primarily a scorer but can't do much else? What is it about that that the defensive guys will play but the other guys can't or won't?
Well, I think what you're doing, you're plugging it in. You plug in the fact that Sam Hauser is going to hit a bunch of threes if he's wide open. Sam Hauser is shooting about 14 kicks.
Right now he is. When he doesn't hit, he's not playable. But Simons is hitting 40% from 3 at 7 threes a game. And if he does stuff Joe doesn't like on the defensive end, he gets a quick hook there. So whereas you see a guy like Minot or Walsh go out there and score 2 points, but they'll hang on the floor a little longer. Why is it that defense is trusted more? Is that as a coach, does it melt their brain when they see somebody mess up defensive assignments, not rotate over to the corner in time, overhelp, and get all of that stuff wrong? I feel like that eats Mazzulla up versus watching Walsh or Minot just simply not factor into the offense at all.
Well, I think the thing that happens is that I've always said this about basketball. If you defend well enough, you don't have to score because you can contain the other guy. But if you are a scorer and you're not scoring the basketball and you're not defending the basketball, what are you really bringing to the table? So that's my belief with that. And that's why I think that you're going to play a guy who defends a little bit more than you would a guy who doesn't defend, especially if his offense has gone south. I just can't imagine that. I mean, I'm watching Sam Hauser shoot now, and it isn't even close. Now, I mean, we're talking about wide open shots that he can hit in the sleep, but his confidence right now is shot on the offensive end. But the thing about great shooters, all they need to see is a couple of them go down, and then it's on the ball.
And I get that, but it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. Sam Hauser started. Everyone should remember, Sam Hauser started last season cold, and then he ended up exactly where you would expect him to end up, which is shooting over 41% from three. That's what he's been every year, 43, 42, 42, 42, every single year. He's going to get there again. I don't understand it though, Max, because you can't just wait to see if shots go in to play a guy. You just play him and wait for the law of averages to kick in. So I don't understand that thinking. Shooters sometimes will make them, sometimes they won't. Why is it that Peyton Pritchard and Derek White were able to stay through and continue to play through their shooting struggles, given a green light, whereas other people get removed? And I understand Derek White's a much more complete player than a guy like Simons. There's no question. But yeah.
It's the other things that they bring to the table. If you look at Peyton Pritchard, his assist total has gone up. He is rebounding,
and he doesn't turn the ball over. Yeah,
no, and he's rebounding the ball for his size and extraordinary range. Derek White is one of the best shot blockers in the NBA at his position, so he's bringing something else to the table along with his big size, his experience, and setting up other people. When you talk about Simons and you talk about Hauser, both guys who haven't hit shots, or you do say in Simons' place when he's getting hot, Joe Mazzulla's complaining. He's just trying to somehow break the ice with Sam Hauser and get him going, and hopefully he'll get going. I like him as a kid. I like him as a player. He anticipates well on the defensive end. His deficiency doesn't have quick speed, but what he does, he outthinks some of these guys, and he will beat them to the spot. But when his offense has gone sour, it seems like now that's affected his defense, and that's when you're really not going to play a guy like that as much.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how it goes, but right now the buttons he's pushing, you have to say, are working. So I'm not saying that anybody who's not playing should be playing over people who are playing instead of them. I think Simons has been wildly inconsistent. I do think he looks lost out there. You can question his engagement and effort, although I think part of it has to do with the fact that he's thinking. And Hauser's just in a funk, and I don't think that that's going to stay that way. I think they're going to try to find minutes, but you've now rotated through that starting, spot from Hauser to Minot to Walsh. And I'm curious, every time you drop some guy, are you going to shatter their confidence? Or going to be okay to come back in there? The experimentation is fine, but you don't want to put the guy in mothballs after you play them, a bunch of minutes and be like, I don't need you anymore. Because again, you're going to need them down the stretch. My beef with, pushing guys off to the side and being like, I don't like you anymore is that you're going to need them. There's not enough talent on this roster to live without whatever Anfernee Simons positive, with the positive attributes a guy like Simons or Hauser bring to the table. You'll need those. You'll need scoring. You're going to have games where Brown might have to sit a game or two, or Derek White or Pritchard. Those guys have to be ready to step in and score points for you, because who else is going to score them? So I don't want to break anybody right now. If this was last year's team, be like, Simons can sit there until he figures it out. We got plenty of guys who can do what he does. It's not last year's team. It's a different team.
You're right about it's a different team. A different situation. But as you're saying right now to me, if you're saying Simons is in his 8th year, but you've been around. You understand the game. You understand that you're not going to play all those minutes if you're not playing well. if your confidence can be destroyed because a guy puts you on the bench and you're in your 8th year, you don't belong in this league. Because if you were in this league for 5, 6 years, you know what goes around comes around. If you're a good player, eventually gonna start playing again. So just don't worry. Don't put too much into it if you're a player. Understand that, look, and I made a point, and I said that about Minot, in front of Minot and the coach. I said, understand this young man. Let me tell you why he yells and screams at you. Because he feels like he can get more from you. You know the worst thing about a player is when if you're a coach or if you're a player, it's when the coach is not saying anything to you. So now it's that I don't give a damn and you can't help me at all. So you would rather that a coach yell at you and kick on you because he knows he's going to use you. And Minot has to understand that when he's going to play, Walsh has to understand these other guys are one of the words Sean Grandy likes to use is ancillary. Right now, Simons is an ancillary player. And if he's hot, then he's going to play. If he's not, then he's not going to play much.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And that's where we're at. And I think it's going to be how it continues. I guess another concern some Celtics fans have is if this is a guy who's not part of your future plans, you're going to have a tough time getting rid of him. You're going to watch that salary walk out the door and you'll get nothing in return. Or if you try to trade him at the trade deadline, you're going to have to add picks to the deal rather than get them back. So from a roster management standpoint, having Simons look the way he's looked right now, I don't think helps you on the court or off it. So I would rather they figure out how to solve it rather than just shrug your shoulders and be like, the dude doesn't get it. He's not going to play for my team. I don't think that that's great. Somebody who has been undoubtedly great this year, and I know Max has caught your attention outside of the Celtics here, and we haven't gotten a chance to see him, but that's the big guy, Victor Wembanyama. You see the clips every single night and, what he's doing. And everyone knows that eventually, assuming he remains healthy, he's going to dominate this league in a way that maybe we haven't seen in a long time. He's a cheat code. But you're already seeing glimpses of it now. And it's not just the shot blocking and the length and this and that. It's the fact that he can almost morph himself into a different type of player at any point in time. You see that clip where he's going out in the perimeter and he's guarding Steph Curry off of a switch and making it so he can't get a catch and shoot, and then he drifts back into the key and gets a blocked shot. He's almost like two players out there right now. It's insane. Your thoughts of Wemby and what this means for like the future of basketball and what the league's going to look like with him in it for the next 10, 12 years.
It's going to be freakish. If that young man stays healthy, and I had a chance to talk to a couple of people from San Antonio, Sean Elliott, who is there, who's played with San Antonio for a while. He told me, he said, if Victor Wembanyama, this is before the draft, if he comes to San Antonio, if he gets drafted by anybody else, he's going to be really good. But if he gets to San Antonio under Greg Popovich and the system, he's going to be great. And I said, wow. He said, because what Greg has done or the Spurs have done with big men, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, those guys were extraordinary players with size. They were very different players, but they're Hall of Famers. So he's in that same mode. He's going to, Albert, right now, and I always think about, oh man, I wouldn't mind the salary, I wouldn't mind playing right now. But did you get a glimpse of Draymond Green guarding him the other day? Draymond Green looked like a kid. He just came to his chest. And Victor, they threw the ball up. He dunked it with the left hand without even getting off his tiptoes. And if you see his athleticism now and his creativity, it's crazy. How many times we've seen a guy 7'5" dribble down the court, step back, get the three, or dribble, fake a guy, throw the ball off the glass, go catch it, dunk it over his head. He's doing things right now that that stuff is for a guy like Giannis, a guy who is 6'10", who's athletic, not a guy who's 7'5", an athletic wingspan, blocking shots. Every year, he could probably be the defensive player of the year. Now, will he eventually be an MVP in this league? I think he will if he stays healthy because he's going to put up those kind of numbers. San Antonio is going to create a bunch of problems out there. And I'm just as surprised kind of moving a little bit in another direction, really just how well the Lakers have played without LeBron and for a while without Luka. And now Luka's back, LeBron's coming back. Yeah, that's something else I'm gonna look at real careful because Luka's done the one thing that San Antonio wanted him to do. I mean, that Dallas wanted him to do was get in shape. And he's in great shape. He's playing well right now. And boy, that trade kind of looks how does it look now if you're Dallas and Anthony Davis can't stay on the floor. Kyrie that was my dark horse pick when I looked at that team to say, man, they're going to be a team that's probably going to be in the finals. Right now, they don't have a clue with Kyrie being out, Anthony Davis often hurt. They have the young rookie beat on them, So Klay Thompson, who was automatic from the three-point line, so going out with Meg Thee Stallion, and everybody's been saying, where's your jump shot at, man? Where's your shot at now? So it's just really baffling to me to think about Jason Kidd and that team and the way they played so far. But then you look at Houston and San Antonio, that West is that's gonna be a hard gauntlet for anybody. And the word Jackness, you haven't even talked about them. And you think about is Jokic, is he the best player right now in the world? Or eventually they're gonna move over. And the biggest thing about it is like you start looking at the top 5 players in the league. Where are the Americans?
They're all international, Max, and they have been.
Yeah. Is it not? Steph Curry would be in the
all. You know where they are? They all tore their Achilles. That's where they are.
Yes, but I just look at
Halliburton, Tatum, Dame. You words, yeah.
How is that going to be when the Olympics come around? I used to thinking about the Olympic game, and that game is going to be played. And I can't imagine what you and I need to do is go out and get some tickets right now for the Olympic basketball, which is coming. Man, that's going to be, we made to print money, man. We had a bunch of tickets for that thing. So I like the fact where the NBA is going, especially since it's an international game. As much as we like NFL football, that doesn't move the needle in this world. It moves in America. But if you start talking about the way the needle is being moved, basketball is international.
I mean, Wemby just kind of jumps into that top, conversation. But you've been here for a while right now in terms of the international dominance here with Jokic and Luka and Giannis and SGA, all being not American. Plus, you throw Wemby into the mix here. It's unreal because all of the great American players are kind of part of the old guard. You've got KD and you've got LeBron and you've got Curry, and the up and comers, you have Tatum, you have Halliburton, you have Anthony Edwards. A couple of those guys aren't playing right now. So it's absolutely dominated by the internationals. You talked about that trade, Max. And again, a long time coming here. I'm amazed Nico Harrison made it this long. Can you imagine that kind of can you imagine what that would be for a fan base to have given up on a player like Luka on a whim, and how in the world that was ever allowed to happen? And I've said this when it happened. Nico's going to take the fall, but that to me is all on the owners, because either you're in on it or you were too stupid to realize it was the dumbest thing anyone has ever conceived of, and you didn't stop it. You had the power to, and you allowed it to happen. But how could you continue on as a Dallas fan right now, seeing what they did?
Well, I think if you look at it, if they're a healthy team with Kyrie Irving, obviously a huge part of what they do. And if Anthony Davis could sometimes just get healthy. Last year, they were a dark horse team to me, and they played well enough for me to consider what the trade they made to be not a problem. But now you look the way Luka is playing, and you look at their team and not having Kyrie, obviously, they're in a bad light. And as you said about that, Nico Harris takes the blame. He's the fall guy for this. But he got through it. Management came to him and said, let's make a deal right now. And matter of fact, there was a letter the other day, public letter, where the ownership group apologized. They said, hey, we made a mistake. And because of that, boy, you can't feel that. If you're that, though, how do you feel if Anthony Davis, though? He said we made a mistake. I just think you have to just take the lumps where they be and not even talk about it. That was your decision to make. You made it and you move on.
Thank you guys for watching us here on the Cedric Maxwell Podcast. We promise more episodes to come as the season gets cooking along here. And Max has a couple special guests planned. We're not going to tell you anything about those right now, but they are absolutely coming. So make sure you stay tuned, like and subscribe to the podcast wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. If you're watching it here on the CLNS Media Network, please subscribe to our channel. Turn on your notifications. Every time a new video drops, you will be notified. And yeah, join the chat, jump in here. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you guys. In the meantime, we will see you all next week.
Wait a minute. Before we go, why was it so funny that the media people got beat up and you just thought that was just hysterical?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked, Mac. Because our dearly beloved, members of the CLNS media team who played on it, Bobby Manning and Noah and several others, thought it was the time of their lives. And it was great. And we were playing with those guys and it was fun and it was bonding. And I'm sitting here shaking my head like, nah, man, he just clowned you guys. And you just took it. Thank you, sir. May I have another? And they were like, no, it wasn't like that at all. And I had so many people jumping down my throat over it. So mad. I can't tell you the amount of people who reached out to me. Like, how dare you have that take? I put a tweet out there saying that was bullying under the guise of bonding. People lost their minds. Then I wrote a column about it on CLNS Media and people lost their minds. And I said exactly that. I didn't want to revisit it. That's why I let you tell the story. But at the time I said, as like, look, man, if he wanted to bond, they could have gone axe throwing or bowling or done something fun together that's actually a equal playing field. Or they could have played together, mix and match teams. But he put the media out there, turned to his coaches who didn't know they were going to play until minutes earlier and said, we're going to beat their asses. We're going to impress them and we're going to embarrass them. I don't want them scoring a freaking bucket. That's not fun. But those guys were convinced they had the time of their lives. And they're like, this was so awesome. So yes, that's why I laughed, because I went back and forth and people were like, shut up, you weren't there. And I'm like, you were, and you don't know it, but you got clowned, man. You got clowned.
Wow. I just wanted to say that before we left, but guys, we thank you for subscribing and coming back with us. And we are going to have a bunch of guests this year. Just getting back into the swing of things right now, and I got a bunch of nice things coming. So, guys, thank you again for being patient with us and giving us your time.
More to come. We'll see you guys later. Take care.